Hello, folks. It's Mr. Nobody bringing you another episode of Making Nobody Happy. And the question that I want to talk about today is, can you have morality without religion? One statement that I often hear from humanistic atheists, many of whom I really like Stephen Fry, is what I think is an obviously false claim that you can have morality without religion. I think that claim is not only untrue, but it's definitively untrue. I also think it's practically untrue in an empirical sense, and that recent events should prove that. Sam Harris and Stephen Fry themselves would have to admit that the biggest practical result of the general success of atheism, or at least non-theism, against traditional religion in the modern world isn't the dawning of some utopian rationalist, everybody on the same page paradise. It's that they now have to spend a surprising amount of time fighting against the rising tide of postmodern atheistic religions. Now, why is this? I would say it's because religion is the architecture of value. All humans, just by being humans, have an architecture of value. Therefore, all humans have religion. You can have amorality without a formalized, developed, or coherent religion, but you'll still have a religion, or a parody or a perversion of one. You know, a Frankenstein monster of bits cobbled together and animated by human need and passion and ingenuity. Possibly some monstrosity of pagan design, all head and no hands, or all hands and no heart. Fractured elements of some greater design, swollen to godlike proportions. This one thing become everything. A cult instead of a whole pantheon. That's a possibility. An idol instead of God. An ideological cutting from the tree of religion. Religion is just what we call a well-developed architecture of value at the scale of human complexity and enterprise. What I mean is that it has extended itself into the many various areas of human value and action, as well as across the various domains of human creative expression, and it's developed algorithms or rituals related to daily human life and the life of society. We call that a religion. It's all coming from the same thing. Religion is mostly just the word we use when something has developed to that degree, when it, like I say, when it has put its roots into all the different parts and into the practicalities, when it's worked itself out. So if you're human, you're going to have a religion. It's just a question of how formalized, how developed, how extended, what algorithms, what values, what actions, how much has it been tested rationally or empirically across time? How much has it been refined? So religion, but to what degree of development and integration and expansion? And how aware of it are you, and in what way do you follow it? And how engaged with that whole process are you? Because you could be doing it very unconsciously. You will still have an architecture of belief. You'll still have religion. You just might have a really messy one that you've not really thought about that much and haven't wrestled out and had people have to reconcile and argue out the details about things. You know, humans don't impose religion on some pre-existing underlying moral structure that it then takes over and sits on top of, that it could be removed from, like scraping butter off bread. That seems to be kind of the idea of Stephen Fry, is that there's some real thing, and religion's just this parasitical thing that we can just push off the top of it and it'll still be there. It is the thing. The religion is the moral structure. The degree, that's what, they aren't different things. They just are the same things. As I said, religion is just a term we use for how developed it is. The degree to which we recognize a system of value as a religion, it's actually very similar to the way that we recognize all the products of human development, including people. You know, you start with something, a single cell that the nature and the structure, the guiding code in it of the whole developed organism, a human being. It could be grown from it. It could be extrapolated from it. But maybe when it's just that one cell, if we just looked at it, we wouldn't immediately recognize what it was, because it hasn't developed. It hasn't become everything that is in its nature if it actually grew to be. It's only as that single cell is extended and developed and produces all the mechanisms, both physically and intellectually, that allow it to engage with the world in the many different ways that humans can, that we actually start to recognize it for what it is. So when we see the limbs and the face, particularly, we look at that and we say, aha, it's a person, or it's a child, and it's on its way to becoming the fully developed fulfillment of that promise of what it always was. But it takes a long time for that cell to grow to become a fully capable adult human, able to do and think and be all the things that we can be, and be able to reproduce itself, which is also something that value systems eventually gain the ability to do as they learn to articulate themselves, as they learn to control things in the world. And now we do that reproduction, with funny thing, we go all the way back to the basic, with a single cell containing that unique little code, that explanation. In a way, it's a kind of abstraction. It's like the gospel of that person, of whatever that creature is. Now, the nature is constant between all those different levels. It's also explicit. You couldn't take body and mind away from the DNA and expect the DNA, the code itself, to be a functioning human. It has to be embodied. And that is something that you also see with systems of value, with religions. They become embodied. They're not just ideas. Anyway, but the system of value, just like the DNA is implicit in, and it's unremovable from the cells of the body. It contains them and they contain it. But the body's more than just a vessel that carries the DNA. The body is the embodiment of it. And that's why a living and active morality and a living and active religion are fundamentally inextricable. One basically grows into the other as it develops. Morality and value are the DNA that the body of religion expresses. So, insofar as we don't really have such a thing as humans without a value structure, without an architecture of value and belief, that wouldn't be something we could recognize as human, well, then they've all got the DNA of religion in it. And all religion is, as I said, is what happens when that thing grows a body. You may not like it. Maybe you don't like that particular organism, but there isn't some other thing. It's almost like they're proposing, if we just eliminated all bodies, we could all be DNA. And we would somehow be able to exist without the actual expression of the thing, without the actual embodiment of the thing that it is. Or that we can claim maybe that I'm a body walking around and doing things and engaging in these all activities, but there is no DNA to the body. Somehow it has this particular structure. Somehow it has this unique and individual nature. Somehow it has these particular values and idiosyncrasies, but there's nothing behind it. There is no code behind it. It just is, and for some reason varies. So both of those are totally implausible. I know this is probably not the easiest analogy to follow, but I'm trying to use something in biology, if I can, to try and explain. I think we can often learn from biology things that help us actually in our day-to-day life. And this is a tricky thing to think about. What is the relationship? What is a religion? What are people really arguing? What are they trying to imagine? And as I said, I feel like we've seen that apart from the fact that, like I said, in theory, because all human beings, to be human is to have this architecture of belief and value, religion is just the outgrowth of architecture and value. Therefore, yeah, you can't really have morality without religion, because that just means that it's being expressed. It has grown into something. It has taken an embodied shape, this code. And I think it's silly to argue that you either don't have the code or you don't have the embodiment. And I feel like that is something I've been hearing people trying to argue. But of course, in practice, they've found it's not working like that at all. They've found, okay, well, we pulled the code out of people, and we thought we could all just sit around and be bodies, and nope, they all got taken over by some other code that's actually even worse than the previous one. So they found that it was not eliminable. And I don't think that they've really come to terms with that yet. People like I said, Sam Harris and Stephen Fry, they haven't quite come to terms with it yet. It is something that has to be reckoned with because, as they said, there's, researchers said we seem to be made to be religious. Well, that's really simple. It's partly because we think of religion in terms of the particular embodiment rather than what is really happening and what it is in its essence rather than what it is in its particulars. It's not like we're all predestined to eat little crackers and sip grape juice. That's obviously, that's like saying everyone is destined to have my exact fingernails. That's a silly thing to say. No, it's saying there are things about what it means to be human, and that includes having, as I said, this architecture of value and belief. It is necessary. It is a necessary part of being human. It is necessary for thinking. It is necessary for action. And religion is essentially implicit in it. So, it's inescapable. You just have to come to terms with it. We can discuss what it is, what it should be. We can have different pitches come up. We have histories of religions who have had a chance to argue things out, talk about things, work out their different issues, explicate themselves. Sure, we can have all sorts of wonderful talk about that. But there isn't any outside to escape to. There is no escaping this issue. There is no avoiding this problem. There is no neutral space in which to inhabit and still be a human. And that's all for today. We'll see you next time.